1886, and between 1986, I'm sorry, between 1986 and 1886, I believe one of the statistics that I have is 80%. The prison system grew 80% in 10 years due to this enactment. And like City shared, typically it is to try and get the kingpins, the big drug dealers. But the bottom line is they're getting our brothers. They're getting our sisters, because it's black women that are being convicted as well. Not to make it a black or white thing, but the truth remains it's the haves versus the have-nots, in my opinion.
Well, we keep going back to the kingpins, but are the kingpins the lawmakers? Is it just convenient to put a law into place where those higher ups, won't get busted, won't get in trouble? It's just unfortunate, but I guess the other situation is when you go into a rehabilitation, or what jail is supposed to be, a rehabilitation atmosphere, are you really being rehabilitated? Because from my understanding, you can get what you need in jail. So what's the purpose of it? If I'm spending my tax money, to rehabilitate somebody or to help them along, and they're able to access this anyway, what's the purpose of putting them in jail?
I definitely agree with what you're saying. I read this article saying that as much drugs are available in the regular population, they're available in jail as well. So obviously, how is it getting in? It's definitely something to think about. But Danielle, you said something that was very interesting. As an African American, I think that we have to be very critical of the laws of the land. It was illegal for us to read, Should I respect the fact that it's illegal for niggers to read, so that's the government and I have to abide by it? No. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the civil rights movement and voting for the right representatives to change your topics. And also, just to quote the Bible, in Genesis, it says that God put every plant bearing fruit for us to use and enjoy. Marijuana is a plant bearing fruit. It is. It's a plant. Enjoy it. It's in look at your Bible in Genesis. That's what it says. I just want to say, first of all, you know what? It's just because you might have certain views about marijuana. My urine is clean. First of all, I have no criminal background check. I can take any drug test right now and pass it with flying colors. However, just because you don't necessarily use marijuana does not mean it's not affecting you personally. Marijuana is affecting everyone who lives on the planet. Even if you, for example, are a Dolphins fan, you realize that Ricky Williams was kicked out of the NFL because he tested positive for marijuana. You might not have used marijuana, but it affects everyone. Just because you don't use it doesn't mean you're not being affected by it. That's what I think.
Okay, well, just to I'm sorry to hear you threw us off for a loop. And I just have to say, Tahira's opinions are her own and not those of Reflections of a Diva. Well, this has been a great conversation, ladies. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Minimum mandatory sentencing laws are defined as a court decision where judicial discretion is limited by law. Typically, people convicted of certain crimes must be punished with at least a minimum number of years in prison. The most controversial mandatory sentencing law is 3 strikes and you're out. The law requires imprisonment for a minimum term of 25 years after a defendant is convicted of a 3rd serious felony. However, certain human rights groups believe that mandatory sentencing laws are discriminatory practices against minorities. Federal courts have used laws as a deterrent in the war on drugs in hopes of reducing drug-related offenses. The result is the possession of crack cocaine, which is frequently associated with minorities, has a significantly harsher sentencing than possession of powder cocaine. In other words, powder cocaine offenders who traffic 500 grams of powder receive the same sentence as crack offenders who possess just 5 grams of crack, resulting in a 100-to-1 sentencing disparity. Do you feel that there is a disparity in sentencing when you're dealing with crack and powder cocaine?
Yeah, that's a disparity. The disparity is if you deal with crack, you go to jail. If you deal with cocaine, you have money, or maybe your parents have money, so you go to rehab. I mean, Rehab, you come out of rehab, you get a job, there's no blemishes on your record, there's nothing that follows you. Really, you don't have to answer the question and say, yes, I've been to rehab. Now, if you're dealing with crack cocaine, you go to jail, and there's a question on the bottom of every application that says, have you ever been arrested? That question right there will lose the job for you, actually. I mean, no matter how good a person you are, what you did since then, I mean, what were the circumstances of your arrest, none of that is an issue. What kind of grades you got in high school, what kind of person you are, none of that is an issue. The only issue is you sold crack cocaine, or you got arrested for crack cocaine or possession of. So I mean, and let me say this on camera or whatever, I've never been arrested, I don't sell crack, I don't touch the stuff. I agree with Bobby and Whitney, crack is whack.
I appreciate that, and you just heard it from yourself. Those who are on powder cocaine, they get rehab. Those who use crack go to jail. For Reflections News, this is Rafael Gentry, Atlanta.